Boudin, who's a public defender who's also running for district attorney right now in San Francisco. And we have Jim here, who's part of the stewardship team to the best of our ability without having site control at 180 Jones. So, yeah, maybe Jim, you could just tell Chesa a little bit about what we've been trying to do here and what your experience is with trying to keep the peace here and how that's challenging without having control of the site.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of people for everything but what it's really designed for. They use it for bathrooms, really crazy and nasty. I see what I see.
You can smell it.
Yeah, it's really bad. And there's a lot of stolen cars. It gets taken from here. A lot of criminals that come in here, they empty their cars, they steal, and a lot of them get caught. The police said they do a good job of catching them. And basically, a lot of homeless people, they come over here and they're really in need, they're hungry, they got nowhere to go, and I think this is really because, I prefer myself to a home in our country to the best of my ability. I try to do what I can, basically. It would be a good thing for my mobile home, would be great because we're living all the scums and all these people that you have using for all the criminal work.
And, okay, the other day some new folks showed up, and I hadn't seen them before. And one of them was in that corner right there and had taken up 3 parking spaces with a couch and started bringing in trash bins and exploding trash everywhere. I got to know him, and then there was another woman that was right here, and she was just in a pile of trash, and she was moaning and kind of yelling at the sky for a while. And I asked the man, what is it that you think she needs? And she was coming off a meth bender, but she doesn't have a place to go. And she and him were actually at this site up until today. And there was this one point that I was talking to the fellow, and his name was Tyrone, and I got to know them and sometimes be able to give them a little food and connect with them and ask them what it is they want and need in order to get into a place where they're not living in crisis. And there was this moment where Tyrone, we were talking about the 24/7 pit stop and urban alchemy, and he was like, man, if he had this moment of profound insight and clarity, and he was just like, if people in jail knew they could come back and get a job doing something for the community, it would just be a different situation.
And so, a safer city, a healthier city, we'd have more resources to invest in the community. I mean, we got to break the cycle.
And so you're someone who's running for district attorney, you've been a public defender, and there's this challenge between sometimes people are caught up in behaviors that are harming others, and they're actually, we sometimes feel like they're dangerous to us, or they're doing things that are taking our property or like making our lives a little bit more challenging. And we don't want them to go to jail, but we want to actually have a healthy boundary, and we want to work together to figure out what is it that you need so that you're not going to cause this chaos.
Yeah, and if they do go to jail, we need to make sure that that is an opportunity for intervention in a way that transforms their lives away from crime and away from damaging themselves or others. And too often what we see today is we arrest people, we put them in jail, and whether it's for a day, a week, a year, when they come back, they're actually in a worse situation than they were beforehand. They're more likely to be vulnerable on the street. They're more likely to resort to crime to survive or to get their needs met. So we've got to figure out a way to make the interventions we have, whether it's through the police, through law enforcement assisted diversion, through Glide Memorial Church, whatever that intervention is, it has to be something that actually lifts people up, gets them off the street and on their feet.
And what do you think about the concept of unarmed crisis response? Because there's this model in Eugene, Oregon called Cahoots, and they're able to divert people from having interactions with armed police and also going to the psychiatric hospitals because they will come out and work with people one-on-one. It's a EMT and a trained crisis de-escalator. Like, how does your role, like if you were DA, like how could you be part of supporting that response?
Yeah, it's so critical because you look around San Francisco and we have a mental health crisis playing out on our streets. We have a tremendous number of people. Some are housed, some are unhoused, some are drug addicted, some are not, who have mental health needs. And the needs aren't being met right now. The jail is the single largest provider of mental health. And it's particularly problematic because what it means is not only are we denying people who need care the care, but we're also waiting for them to commit a crime and put someone else in harm or in fear before we give them the care that they need. And we saw that in the Austin Vincent case, which has been in the news a lot lately, where two different people called and asked for exactly the kind of intervention that they would have given him in Eugene, Oregon, for someone with mental health training to come to the scene and intervene before there was an actual crime committed. But the police in San Francisco weren't able or willing to respond. And the third time the police were called, it was after an alleged violent assault that was caught on video. And now there's a woman who is in fear, who doesn't feel safe in her own home and in her own neighborhood. And there's people all across the city who are angry. We could have avoided it if we provided the mental health care services up front.
Right.
I believe that a part of that is all restorative justice. And as we build in the community with the mind frame of restorative justice at the forefront, it allows us to give all of those services that the community desperately needs. Being a public defender throughout your whole career, being able to take restorative justice as your leading man, so to say, to truly solve and fix people's problems.
Yeah.
How would that work? So let's say I actually have had my car broken into just last week, and someone popped out the back window, and I called the place over on Bayshore, and they said it was going to be $210 for this little window. I actually brought it over here, and Jim and his cousin got some plexiglass and fixed it for me, which I think is
You got to know the right people.
Because it's such a great headline, because it's like homeless man fixes broken window, you know, like it's, but let's get into that, because people aren't just homeless person, right? They're a person with skills who are experiencing homelessness,
and
right?
Dreams and hopes and aspirations and histories.
Mm-hmm.
I want to comment on what I'm really bad with names.
Chesa. Yeah, Chesa.
What you said regarding you commit a crime, be helped. You know, when I was put on probation, I was licensed out of San Jose. I was arrested and everything, and then I lost everything. They gave me a DUI. 6 months later, they gave me a citation in court. They gave me a ticket 6 months later in court. And they want to dismiss every all other charges, but they want to stick me with the DUI so they can ruin my driving career, which they did. I ended up getting a place to live in through probation. Probation actually got me a place at 476 Third. So I ended up having like a place for almost 3 years because I was on probation. But why couldn't they have those kind of programs for people that are trying to do something to better themselves? Why do they have to commit a crime before they get help and get that kind of help?
Yeah, I've seen that in the drug court here in San Francisco, which is a collaborative court between the public defender, the DA, and the court, trying to help people who are drug addicted and who are justice system involved get help. And I've seen people say, you know, people who are ready to graduate from drug court, charged to graduate, I'd rather have the criminal case still pending because I'll lose my housing if I graduate. So we need to make sure that we have transitional care and transitional services for people as they're exiting from probation, as they're exiting from jail. And the more we do that, and the more we focus on healing the harm, as Aljerone was saying, the harm that crime causes, the less crime we're going to have.
Yes, exactly. Because I speak to a lot of guys that come out of prison. I know a lot of people, and and I tell them, how was it? Have you learned your lesson? Because they go, he. I mean, they go, hell no. It just made me smarter. I mean, how do you deal with that mentality?
Yeah, it's not making us safer. Prison. Look, 2/3 of the people who come home from prison will be back in prison within a couple of years, right? So this system in the county jail and in the state prison is a revolving door. It's not making us safer. It's not preventing crime. in many cases, it's actually making crime inevitable and more likely. And it's not just the individuals; it's their families, it's their communities that are torn apart by crime and incarceration.
What do you do differently when so someone gets caught doing something that was causing harm, some kind of illegal activity? So we do want to address that, and we want to make sure that they stop doing that kind of harmful stuff. But then, what's different about how you're seeing it? Like
right now,
in the process?
I mean, it's such an important part. Right now, all too often, victims don't hear from the DA's office. Victims don't have a voice in the process. Victims are cut out of it. And the process focuses on securing a conviction and punishing the person who did harm without holding them accountable in a meaningful way for the actual harm that was caused, and without asking what the victim needs to move forward with their life. The idea behind restorative justice, as Aljerone was saying earlier, is that we want to start by asking the victim what they need. And what can we do as a justice system to heal the harm, whether it's fixing the broken window, whether it's fixing the broken bones, whether it's restoring a sense of safety in your own neighborhood, your own home. That's not happening right now. Victims are often just used to secure convictions to justify lengthy prison sentences. But what we want to do is actually require people who've caused harm to take responsibility for healing that harm. And in so doing, we not only heal the harm, but we make it way less likely that they're going to commit a crime.
And being a ex-felon myself, and being incarcerated for the first time, I had taken anger management in the past before my first time being incarcerated. And that form of anger management was truly directed, it was strong, and it truly, you walked away from there 6 months, or I did it for a year later, and you are changed. You do have the proper tools to make better decisions. And then when I was incarcerated and I received anger management and counseling, compared to Safeway or Target. It's a completely different soap, completely different body wash. And in seeing that the restorative justice side and education and training is having a more directive, stronger approach of education in prison and in jail, and not necessarily GED, college, or diploma, but anger management, drug rehabilitation, and I think even drug rehabilitation is under anger management.
Sure.
And so I believe one of the possible ways for restorative justice is to really target the quality of education that they're receiving in the right categories.
No, that's right. And part of restorative justice, and we just released a detailed policy on our website today about our restorative justice proposal. But part of the idea is that the person who's caused harm needs to be held accountable, needs to help heal the harm, and needs to not do harm again. And sometimes that means getting them sober. Sometimes that means getting them off the streets. Sometimes that means finding ways for them to get the skills to manage their anger. All the time when we talk to victims about what they want, one of the main things they want is, it's so critical that we keep our community safe by reducing crime, not just punishing it.
And those who causes harm, they have to also realize and accept responsibility for what they did.
That's right.
And they have to why they became a crime. And maybe that would be a good start to help them. But education is number one thing, I think. If you can set up giving them jail time, pressure them in some kind of education in jail or whatever, so they can learn and be better in the community.
Or let's prevent them from going to jail in the first place by having a stewardship village like the one we want to have here. And
intervene before crime is committed. Right?
Correct.
Yeah.
And
to de-escalate the situation.
And there are people here that yell and get agitated, but we know them, and so if we say their name, they'll respond to us, and we could be a good, exactly. We know each other, and so Jim does this all the time, is that he helps calm people down.
They look bad, but see, once you go up to them and talk to them,
treat them with respect.
They're like little nieces, you know what I mean?
Well, there's trust between you.
Yeah, it's because, and then they're not there. I can see it in their eyes that they feel embarrassed, but some of them are bipolar. They're talking, engaging in conversation, and yelling at something that's not there. But if you come and say their name in their ear, say, "What are you doing? Are you okay? What are you yelling at?" To make sure it derails their thought of engaging with whatever they're talking to, and then they feel they got a job and that they're embarrassed or kind of bad. You know what I mean? I gotta feel bad for
But this is a first step in this site, because if you really believe that everyone belongs in a deep fundamental way, and that everybody's needs matter in a deep fundamental way, then you can start having that conversation. And we also want, the flip side is that we belong in relationship, and so we want to make sure that we care about our impacts on other people on the planet, and we want to make sure that we're a team player. And that's this stewardship village. We would have a stewardship team, and of resident stewards, 5 would be living on site, and I would be managing the project. Jim would be one of those people. Aljerone is involved in some way. We haven't figured out yet, but is involved. And we would go through training and orientation together in all of these skill sets. Even if we already have them, we would re-up our skill sets in dealing with crisis, and really having this ethos of, when people are acting chaotic, what if diffuse this? And it might be they need some space. Yeah, and to the real healing.
Yes.
And if we can't provide their basic needs and address those things that are out of control right now, let's have some grace. Let's shine a light with grace.
And we all need grace.
You have to have a replacement for what they need, and you make them accept the replacement, which is very hard to do.
Yes.
Most of 60-70% of the time, what they want is what we can't give them. It's illegal drugs. Some of them they want, and you have to be able to, convert that into something close to it, so they can start them in a different habit than the habit that got them.
That's why we've been saying lately, like, stick to the green.
Yeah.
And we're trying to help transition people off of meth, and especially meth, but heroin and crack and benzos and even cigarettes and alcohol. It's like, stick to the green. But I'd like to help transition people into the green economy. So if they're selling drugs right now that are harmful to people's bodies, let's get them into that pathway of the cannabis industry, or power jobs, or
being able to employ the ones who are selling the drugs, because that's one of the biggest fears is, I've tried to get a job, they don't hire me.
Right.
And one thing that I'm sure we've all noticed in the industry that's being built in the cannabis, that the disproportion that there is in ownership and in everything when it comes to people of color and people that are living in hardship, people who have backgrounds, people who have hardships in general, they are not represented.
Things I want to respect your time. Are you needing to leave?
Yeah.
Okay, so
this is so great. I'm so excited.
Please spread the word.
To meet you and to see you and to be here and imagine what we as a community can do with this space that is so neglected and abandoned and abused, and that in many ways has repercussions throughout our community because of that abandonment. And when we can use spaces, come together, build spaces that are healing and restorative, we're all safer as a result, we're all happier as a result, and we actually have the foundation for the kind of...
Much for coming out. We appreciate you.
Thank you. Appreciate you.